I want to talk to Brendan O'Neill. He is Chief Political Writer at Spiked. Brendan, so much to talk about this evening. I think I'll probably want to start with Kneecap, which you have some really good views, and views I totally agree with on. This is counter-terrorism police now investigating those videos. Let's just remind ourselves with the video of what Kneecap have been saying. This is at a concert in November where they called for MPs to be killed.
Tories. The only good Tory is a dead Tory.
Kill your local MP. This is what these rappers have said. A Met Police spokesman said, were made aware of a video on the 22nd of April, believed to be from an event in November 2024, last year of course, and it has been referred to the Counter-Terrorism Internet Referral Unit for assessment and to determine whether any further police investigation may be required. We have also been made aware of another video believed to be from an event in November 2023. Brendan, you probably almost more than any other person I've ever met are for free speech in this country. But when you go around saying this sort of stuff, there are consequences, aren't there?
There are consequences, yes. You know, if you go up on stage and say up Hamas or up Hezbollah or kill your local MP, you know there's going to be consequences. No one says things like that without recognizing that there's going to be blowback. That's probably what Kneecap wanted. But you know, Peter, the thing that really has struck me is the extraordinary hypocrisy of the left. Because we have a left right now that doesn't believe in freedom of speech at all, which thinks it's hate speech to say he about men, which thinks it's hate speech to say that a man can't be a lesbian, for example. For years, they've been telling us all of these kinds of perfectly true statements are hateful and bigoted. And yet now, when you have a rap act standing up and singing the praises of an anti-Semitic army, a bunch of anti-Semites that carried out the worst attack on Jews since the Nazis, suddenly the left are all about free speech. Suddenly they're defending them. So that hypocrisy, I think, is extraordinary and very revealing.
I also think the hypocrisy in regard to saying, well, we care about Gaza. Gaza is the story you should be talking about. I mean, you could say that about almost any other story in the world is bigger than this. It's not a particularly big story, but it is a controversy and it is something that we're covering and should cover. But yes, Gaza is a bigger story. Of course it is. They're saying focus on that. That's the story. In fact, many of these pop stars who have supported them, people like Paul Weller, Primal Scream, Pulp, Thin Lizzy as well, are saying actually this you should be talking about Gaza. But if you're supporting Hamas and you're saying up Hamas, which they deny doing, but they said up Hamas for goodness sake. I mean, how much clearer do you want it to be? They're saying, well, we care about Gazan children. Well, Hamas don't care about Gazan children. And if you care about the civilians in Gaza, which I do, and maybe Kneecap do to some degree, you don't say up Hamas and you don't say up Hezbollah, because Hamas are killing their own people, and there are people who are against Hamas within Gaza who just want to live a free and peaceful life. So that doesn't even work by itself as a concept.
Absolutely right. You know, if you are pro-Gaza, if you are pro-Palestinian, you will be anti-Hamas. Anti-Hamas are a bunch of religious tyrants. They brutally suppress the women of the Palestinian territories. They kill apostates. They kill their opponents. They are homophobic, misogynistic. We know all of this. They repress the Palestinians with a vigor that is only outdone by how much they hate the Jewish people, of course. So they are the worst nightmare for the people of Gaza. And that's why we've seen an explosion in anti-Hamas protests in Gaza over the past 6 months or so. And of course, none of the left in the West is cheering that on, because they are fundamentally pro-Hamas rather than pro-Palestine. That's what's been revealed by this. But, you know, the thing that gets me, we have a real anti-Semitism problem in Britain and in Europe right now. So it is perfectly legitimate to ask questions about a rap band that poses with a copy of Hassan Nasrallah's book. That's a book that refers to Jews as apes and pigs. If there was a band, if there was a pop act that posed with a book that referred to black people as monkeys, we would be horrified by that. And I don't think the left would be defending that band. And yet when it comes to Jews, apparently you can get away with anything. That's really, really starting to creep people out, that double standard, and I think we need to address it.
And what do you think of people like Paul Weller and Pulp and Thin Lizzy and these 40 people who have said, as artists, we feel the need to register our opposition to any political repression of artistic freedom. In a democracy, no political figures or political party should have the right to dictate who does or does not play at music festivals or gigs that will be enjoyed by thousands of people. Their letter also accuses politicians of strategically concocting moral outrage over the stage utterings of a young punk band while ignoring a genocide, as they put it, factually incorrectly, in Gaza. Kneecap are not the story, Gaza is the story, genocide is the story, and the silence, acquiescence and support of those crimes against humanity by the elected British government is the real story.
It's ridiculous. You know, I, as you said at the start, I am very much against cancel culture. I don't like censorship. I don't like shutting people down. I don't like it when politicians wag a finger at music acts. You know, we've seen that historically with Relax by Frankie Goes to Hollywood, or the Sex Pistols, or, you know, any number of acts. NWA in the early 1990s, they had a song called F the Police, which caused a huge storm and still gets people's backs up today. So I don't like any of that censorious approach to music, but I think those music acts that are standing by Kneecap, again, you have to ask whether they really know what Kneecap has said, whether these people really understand what Hamas represents. Hamas is a fascistic movement that was founded with the express intention of killing Jewish people. I think it's perfectly reasonable to be concerned when we see public displays of support for a movement like that. To my mind, it's as bad as if Kneecap had gone up on stage and said, up the KKK. And I don't think Paul Weller and all the rest of them would be coming out to support them if they had done that.
I think you're absolutely correct. Also, they're not a young punk band. One of them is 35 and has taught children and knows how children can be susceptible to these things. Let's talk about a couple of other things. The Football Association banning trans women, or biological males, of course, from women's football next season after the Supreme Court ruling. This is going to kick in on the 1st of June. What's your reaction to that, Brendan?
Great decision. Long overdue. It should have happened a lot earlier. But it's the right decision. And, you know, I keep seeing all these headlines, FA, football groups banning transgender women from women's sports. No, they're banning men from women's sports. We have to be really honest about this. I know some of these men identify as women, but for the purposes of sport, for the purposes of the institutions of society, they are men. They are biological males. The Supreme Court ruling has made that clear. Men should not play in women's sport. It is catastrophically unfair to make women and girls play against men and boys. We know that courtesy of male puberty, men are faster, they're stronger, they have larger muscles. That's why we have sex categories in sport. So I think it's great for women's football and for women's sport more broadly that men are being kicked out. It should have happened a lot sooner.
Very interestingly, just on the net zero debate, we have Unite, the big union, warning Labour's net zero plan will become a millstone. I would argue it has already, actually, and Sir Tony Blair saying roughly the same thing. These are two, well, Unite perhaps not, but Tony Blair, you can't get more sort of mainstream really than Tony Blair saying this. Are you surprised by this, that they finally caught up with the rest of us?
Well, that's exactly the point. You know, that a lot of us have been saying this for a long time, and we were called names for doing so. We were called climate change deniers, or people who should be denied airtime on the BBC for a long time. Anyone who questioned any aspect of environmentalism was treated as some kind of pariah who shouldn't be allowed into polite society. It's good that Tony Blair is speaking out, and Unite as well, and other people. I think it's about time. But again, we see that double standard. Tony Blair's right, though. Net zero is a disaster. To my mind, it's a suicidal ideology, which actually demands that we destroy our own industries, we destroy jobs, we stop digging for oil, we stop digging for gas, we put ourselves at a disadvantage in relation to other nations. It's a weird kind of elite religion that demands that Britain self-flagellate for the sins of modernity, for the sins of industry. It's a crazy idea, and the sooner that the political class gets rid of it, the better.
Brendan, thank you. That's Brendan O'Neill there, who's the chief political writer at Spiked.